Welcome to Our Girl Relationships. On this channel, we talk about problems people face in their day-to-day lives. Let's start with a video.
My relationship with my mom has never been smooth. She had a bitter and savage mom who never cared for anyone. Her relationship with my dad had always been rocky as well. She was someone who would never listen to anyone and would do whatever suited her. This made her relationships complicated, but she never tried to be calmer. Her relationship with her brothers was also rough. They had deprived her of her dad's will, and she could not do anything other than just cut them off. My dad, on the contrary, was a very calm and decent man, but that does not mean that he could be exploited. He was very intelligent and witty as well. My mom never failed to create issues and initiate fights that were often baseless and did not have any sense. My dad was a very considerate person and loved spending time with us, but because my mom was rude all the time, he started avoiding us and preferred staying at his friend's place. This ignited even more fights between them as my mom had started imagining him being involved in an extramarital affair. Things were getting worse with every passing day, and then they both decided to opt for divorce. To be honest, I was glad, because at least then there would be some peaceful days, but I was wrong. My parents got divorced, and my mom won my custody just because my dad would have to pay for my expenses. My dad refused and told her that if she was so much interested in keeping me, she had to look after my expenses too. My mom sued my dad, and he had to pay for my expenses, but my dad was not ready to give up. He would pay my school fees directly to the school, would buy me everything I would need, but would never hand over cash to my mom. This made my mom penniless, while I was getting all the privileges. My mom had to work in a salon to meet her expenses, as my dad would contribute only for the expenses that had to do with me. My mom suffered financially, but it was due to her sick-mindedness. My high school ended, and I told my dad that I wanted to move out all by myself. He was glad to know, since now he would not have to deal with my mom anymore. He promised that he would support me and would care for me until I would be able to afford my lifestyle. He rented an apartment for me, got me admitted to a good university, and promised to send me a certain amount every month. I started university and also started working as a freelancer side by side, which kept me busy and I would earn well. My mom hates me for this and told me that we were the worst family she had, as we only cared for ourselves. We all knew it was because of herself, as she was unable to maintain a healthy relationship with anyone. Only a few months passed, and Mom called to ask me if I could help her and then lend her some money as her bills were due. I told her that I did not earn that well and would never send her the money my dad had given me because it would be like cheating on my dad. She told me that no one would know about it and she would return before my dad ever found out. I told her that I could not help her and she should stop exploiting me to get money. I hung up the phone. I didn't respond to any of her calls after that, and she poured hundreds of messages into my inbox begging me for help. I knew she was just being dramatic and wanted money only. The very next day, the Queen came straight to my university to see me. I told her that we could not talk there and told her to get out of there. I am sick of this woman who cannot even imagine thinking about anyone else. I told her that I never wanted to see her again and that if she tried to contact me, I would have to inform the police. AITA? After I had threatened my mom, there were no calls or texts from her for a week. I thought that at last she had left me alone, but as usual, I was wrong and she was unstoppable. A week later, my mom's best friend called me and told me that she wanted to see me. I told her that I knew her motive and would never allow her to play games with me. Her best friend told me that the matter was much more serious than I imagined, and I had to help my mom. I told her that I would talk to my mom, but she insisted on seeing me. I told her that she could come to my apartment in the evening, and I sent her the address. My mom's best friend arrived. I served her tea. She started by narrating my mom's sad story and how she had been left alone by every relationship she ever had. She told me that my mom's brothers had cheated on her and gulped her property as well. She also narrated how my dad never tried to understand her and only made her life more miserable. She told me that my mom's life had turned into hell since I moved out, as my dad had stopped paying the bills and contributing to the rent of the apartment we were staying in. She showed me the unpaid bills and told me that I was the only one who could help. I knew she would try to emotionally manipulate me, but to be honest, I had a soft corner for my mom. I told her to leave the bills with me as I would pay them, and that was the only thing I could do. My mom never stopped calling me and begging for financial help, and it was not because she was helpless, but because she hated to work and wanted someone else to bear her expenses. I was tired of helping her in one way or another. She would ask me to pay the bills or would send me a list of things to be bought. I was tired of this drama. One day, she called me and told me that she knew it was hectic for me to pay bills and do groceries for her, so I could simply send her some cash. I told her that it was impossible, but she was too stubborn to listen. I knew it was time to involve my dad. I shared the whole story with my dad and apologized for not informing him on time. He was very furious to know and asked me to call my mom and give her a warning. I called her and told her that as my dad knew everything, he would ruin her if she ever tried to use me. She told me that I was the worst kid anyone could have and also that she had better strangled me to death just when I was born. She did not even care that she could be in a fix for this. My dad told me that he was going to file a report against her for harassing me for money and also for threatening to kill me. We were able to get a restraining order against her. I graduated, got my degree, and was applying for jobs. My mom had never tried to contact me after that, and my life was so peaceful without her creating scenes now and then. I soon landed a job, but had to move to another city, and I was the happiest on earth. My dad was also very happy, and I shifted soon afterward. Almost a decade had passed. I got married to my long-term boyfriend, who was also my colleague and was blessed with a cute baby boy. Life was just going perfect and everything was in its place. To be honest, I never missed my mom, and it seemed like I only had a single parent, and that was my dad. After all these years, mom's call was the least I expected. My mom called me one fine day and congratulated me. I thanked her and thought that she was congratulating me on my son, but she told me that I had a sibling as she had just given birth to a baby girl. I was shocked to my bones. She told me that her financial conditions never got better, and as this was for my sibling now, I was supposed to help her. She told me that she believed I was not that heartless to abandon my sibling. I told her that I was going to visit her soon. This was the least expected scenario, but of course, I could not leave my sibling like that after all. I was not as selfish as my mom always had been. I have decided to go back to my hometown and see my mom. I went to see my mom and the baby, and my mom was already at her apartment. I asked her who my sister's dad was, and my mom stammered, and it seemed like she was thinking of a name. I knew something was wrong. I asked her where her boyfriend was, to which her best friend told me that he had dumped my mom just when he came to know about her pregnancy. Nothing seemed right, and I knew my mom was up to something, as she could go to any limit for money. I told her that I wanted them to take a DNA test. My mom lost her mind and told me that I was the worst of humankind, and just to back off from my responsibility, I was shaming them. I told her that it was not my responsibility but hers, and if she's not willing to go for a test, I was going back home. My mom agreed, and I took her to take the test. The reports showed that it was not my mom's baby, and she had once again plotted for the sake of money. I was boiling with anger. I came to know that it was one of her friend's babies, and she used her to emotionally pressurize me, as there was no other way I could help her financially. I told her that she was the filthiest human being who would spare no one for her own sake. I told her that that was the last time we were going to see each other, and I left. NTA. OP tried her best to get rid of that a-hole sort of mother, but she would never leave OP alone. I appreciate that OP tried to help her and made sure she was there when she paid bills and did groceries, but was being used only. OP should have involved her dad long before letting her mom exploit her that much. Getting a job and moving out of the city was also a great idea, and that helped to escape from the shitty games that her mom played.
Next story.
I know the title sounds bad, but hear me out. Me, 21-year-old female, and my ex, a 21-year-old guy, were high school sweethearts. We dated from 17 to 18. Everyone always said we'd get married and have babies, whatever. Fast forward to COVID, 2019 to 2020. We weren't really working out, and I started to realize he had a really bad obsession with me. Like, he was obsessed with every little thing I did, who I spoke to, what I ate, and how I dressed. It even got so bad that he started stalking me. He would wait outside my house all night in his car, and my neighbors would complain that he was taking up parking space and didn't live on our street and was disrupting the public peace with his loud music because he has a subwoofer. I live in a private residential area that has security. He would always conveniently be at the arcade when I was with my friends, at the gym when I was there, outside my work to pick me up every single day when I finished my shift, and just other little things that I brushed off as him just being clingy. I remember telling my sister about how odd he was acting towards me and how obsessive she was, and she told me that he was stalking me. She told me to get my older brother, 25, involved as he is a big guy and a lot of people know of him being a little bit scary. I took her advice and told him. My brother didn't take this lightly as he then went to my ex's house and threatened to ruin his life and fight my ex's older brother, who was a lot more scrawny than my brother. After a little time, my ex finally decided to leave me alone, but I was then struggling with bad PTSD with the trauma my ex put me through. I summarized a lot of it, as I'm not sure if I can put some of it here. So I decided to go to the police and start a court case against him. Now, 2 years later, I have a restraining order against him, and he is not allowed to come near me, my family, or friends. But now that I've gotten closer with a lot of people from high school, they're all calling me an AH and saying that everything he did to me isn't as bad as what I put him through with court and getting my brother involved. They're saying that I got him kicked out from a local gym. He finds it difficult to get a job now as this is on his permanent record, and people all over our city know him as a crazy stalker ex. They said that he can't get into a new relationship since everyone is scared of him now, and his mom and brother don't speak to him like normal anymore. Basically saying that I ruined his life and I didn't have to go that far. I don't think I did anything wrong as I was protecting myself and my family, but now I'm starting to second guess and thinking I was the AH and maybe I did overreact. I'm considering going back on my restraining order and to make things better, but don't know if I should. AITA? We broke up in January 2020 and I told my sister and brother in June 2020. Yes, I did leave out lots of information, but it's just because I was unsure if I can post it on here. I hope that helps everyone. When I say he finally decided to leave me alone, he stopped briefly for about 2 weeks and then continued again once everything died down. This time, the situation got 100 times worse. That's when I felt like I had enough and got the police involved. Also, about the severity of the situation, like I said, I didn't include every detail as I don't know if I can put it on here, but I have replied to some comments with brief descriptions of what he had done. But another example would be in February 2020, he turned up at this guy's university hall that I was seeing. I'm not sure how he knew I was there and came to his door. He was on the very top floor, right at the back, and started banging on it, telling me he's going to unalive me. I came out and he dragged me down the hall. I had carpet burns across my legs and left a trail of blood down the stairs. This was all caught on CCTV that was used in the court. No, do not give in to peer pressure on this. If he is telling them to talk to you on his behalf, he is actually in violation of the restraining order. That activity is not normal behavior and is stalking. So much so that the police and courts agreed with you. I recommend you look at the domestic violence power and control wheel. See if his actions are similar to what is on there. You are obviously NTA.
Next story.
I had a pretty big breakup a few years ago. We were together for 7 years until she broke up with me in order to sleep with Fat Jesus from the store she worked at. She refused to collect any of her stuff from me. We're talking clothes, books, manga, anime merchandise still in the box, DVDs, etc. And most importantly, her old laptop. Upon her refusing to collect any of her stuff, I emailed her. Partly there would be some record of this, partly because she'd blocked me on the most other platforms because me being upset was apparently emotional blackmail, saying that she had X date to come and collect her stuff. Otherwise, I would bin, recycle, sell it all. I gave her 60 days to come and collect it. She replied telling me to just piss off and stop trying to find excuses to see her, and that she did not want any of the stuff, and that I should do what I wanted with it. I specifically inquired about the laptop, and she said that she didn't care because she had her main computer and all her files were backed up on a USB. I tried explaining before that it isn't backing up if they're the only copies, but she never listened. I contacted her twice from this point, telling her that she had X number of days to collect it. So if she's going to change her mind, then she needs to let me know. As for the laptop, I contacted her after the given date, telling her that I was about to nuke the drives from the laptop and have them recycled. No response. So I did the responsible thing, given that it wasn't my data, and ran dban on the drives to completely nuke them and then sent them to the drive shredding place. Stripped the laptop down to parts, took what was usable, and sold the rest on eBay. I forgot about it until a few weeks back. She messaged me asking if she could have the laptop back because her USB stick had, surprise, surprise, failed, and she'd lost all her photos on there, including the only copies she had of the photos of her mother, who unfortunately passed away a few years back. I told her that, as I said before, the laptop was gone and I destroyed the hard drives. The data was gone. She absolutely flipped out of her mind and told me that I'm a horrible person and that I knew there were photos of her mother on there. So why would I ever do that? She thinks I'm a piece of crap and was being spiteful, and that there was no reason that I couldn't have kept a copy of her data, as I have a huge storage server to keep it on, and that it would have made basically zero impact to myself. I know she's being unreasonable, but she's right. I have around 96 TB of storage on my server. I could have stored her entire laptop's worth of data 100 times over and not even notice. There was no reason for me not to do so, other than me not wanting to. I absolutely 100% could have kept the data after destroying the laptop. AITA for not holding on to the data at absolutely zero inconvenience to myself, knowing exactly what was on there. NTA, you have plenty of notice to collect her stuff. She can't seriously expect you to have held onto her laptop for over 3 years. It sucks that she's lost those photos, but she can't just use you for free storage of her stuff.